The official title for Arthur Vance was Senior Facilities Manager, but everyone at Innovate Dynamics just called him Art. He was the man who knew the building's secrets. He knew the precise hum the servers made before the quarterly backup, which executive always forgot their key card, and that the expensive espresso machine on the third floor had a persistent leak that, despite 3 different technicians, only his careful touch could temporarily fix. He was 68, a widower, and moved with the quiet efficiency of a man who preferred the company of blueprints and wiring diagrams to the loud, ambitious chatter of the sales floor. His office was in the basement, K20, a small windowless room that smelled of old paper and ozone. He didn't mind. It was quiet. It was steady. And, most importantly, it was here. This building, this company, was the last living piece of his daughter, Elara. Innovate Dynamics had been her dream. She and her husband, Damien, had started it in their garage. Arthur remembered those early days. The excitement, the fear, the second mortgage he'd taken out on his own home to give them the seed money they desperately needed. Elara had been the creative genius, Damien the charismatic salesman. When Elara passed away from cancer 5 years ago, the company became Damien's whole world, and Arthur stayed on, managing the facility, just to be close to what she had built, to be close to his granddaughter, Chloe, who Damien sometimes brought into the office. But Damien had changed. The grief and ambition had curdled into something else. The small, innovative design firm Elara had envisioned was now a ruthless, high-growth tech corporation. Damien, once a son to him, now barely made eye contact. He was Mr. Thorne, the CEO, and Arthur was just article. The rumors of the buyout had been circulating for months. Apex Global, a massive, soulless conglomerate known for buying innovative companies and stripping them for parts, had made an offer. Elara had always sworn she would never sell, that the company's purpose was to create, not to be consumed. Damien, it seemed, did not share that conviction. The pressure was mounting. Arthur could feel it in the building's atmosphere. Damien was short-tempered, the meetings were tense, and strangers in expensive suits were always touring the floors. The end came on a Tuesday. Arthur was replacing a faulty ballast in a ceiling light on the executive floor when Damien's assistant, a young woman who looked perpetually stressed, rushed over. "Art, Mr. Thorne needs you in the main conference room. Now." Arthur wiped his hands on his coveralls. "Is it the projector again?" "I told him the bulb is—" "Now, Art, please." He gathered his tools and walked down the hall. The glass doors of the conference room were closed, but he could see the entire board, along with 2 of the strangers in suits. Damien was at the head of the table, pacing. Arthur knocked lightly and entered. "You needed me, Mr. Thorne?" Damien stopped pacing. He looked at Arthur, not as a father-in-law, not as a colleague, but as an obstacle. "Arthur," Damien said, his voice slick and performative for his guests, "we're in the final stages of a transition. A very exciting one. Apex Global is acquiring us, and we are moving toward a leaner, more dynamic future." The men from Apex watched Arthur with cold indifference. That's wonderful, Damien," Arthur said, though his stomach tightened. "Yes, and a leaner future means streamlining. We've analyzed our operational redundancies." Damien smiled, a thin, cruel gesture. And unfortunately, your position, Mr. Vance, is one of those redundancies where restructuring facilities management. Your services will no longer be required. The air left Arthur's lungs. It wasn't the job. It was the public humiliation. It was the dismissal. It was the casual erasure of his presence. I don't understand, Arthur stammered. It's simple, Art, Damien said, picking up a pen and tapping it. You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you to your office to collect your personal effects. We appreciate your years of service. One of the Apex men smirked. Good to see you're not sentimental, Thorne. It's what chokes growth. No sentiment here, Damien agreed, turning his back on Arthur. Just progress. Arthur stood there for a moment, the tool belt heavy on his hips. He looked at the man his daughter had loved, a man he had treated as a son. He saw only a stranger. He nodded once, turned, and walked out. He didn't let security escort him. He took the service elevator down to K20. He sat in his chair, the one with the worn armrests. He didn't pack his photos of Alaire and Chloe. He didn't pack his coffee mug. He simply took his keys from the desk, unlocked a single gray filing cabinet in the corner, and pulled out a thick, leather-bound folder. It was labeled simply E.D. Seed. He left the building he had managed for 15 years, walked past the security guard who wouldn't meet his eye, and stepped out into the bright, indifferent afternoon. He went home. He made a cup of tea. Then he called his lawyer. "Hello, Cynthia," he said, his voice perfectly calm. "Do you still have the convertible note documents for Innovate Dynamics? The original 500,000? Yes. I believe the terms stated it would convert to a 51% controlling stake if the company was sold without my consent, or if the core mission Alara defined was fundamentally altered. Yes, Damien Thorne's actions today constitute a clear breach. Please begin the proceedings." 2 days later, Damien Thorne was on top of the world. He was in the main auditorium, standing on a stage in front of his entire staff. The Apex Global logo was projected on the giant screen behind him. This was his victory speech. "Today, we are not just a company," he announced, his voice booming. "We are a legacy. This acquisition by Apex Global isn't an end. It's an evolution. It secures our future, and it secures your future." The applause was polite, but anxious. Everyone knew what acquisitions meant. "And now," Damien said, beaming, "I'd like to invite Mr. Harrison from Apex to finalize the main doors of the auditorium swung open. 2 men in dark suits entered, followed by a woman with a briefcase. Cynthia, Arthur's lawyer. And then Arthur walked in. He was not wearing his maintenance coveralls. He was wearing a dark, impeccably tailored charcoal suit, the one he had worn to Alara's funeral. He walked with a stillness that commanded the room's attention. "What is this?" Damien snapped from the stage. "Security! Get him out of here!" "I wouldn't," Cynthia said, her voice sharp and clear. "Mr. Thorne, I am Cynthia Adler, counsel for Mr. Arthur Vance. We are here to serve you." Damien laughed. "Serve me? Serve me what? A restraining order?" "No," Cynthia said, stepping forward as the men with her handed Damien a thick stack of documents. "A notice of default. and an immediate injunction against this sale. And this. She handed him a final single-page document. Damien read it. His face went from confusion to disbelief to a sickly, pale white. The microphone in his hand began to whine with feedback. This is impossible," he whispered. "It's very possible," Arthur said, his voice quiet, but carrying in the dead silent room. He walked to the foot of the stage and looked up at his son-in-law. "When you and Elara started, I gave you $500,000, Arthur said clearly. "You told me it was a gift. It wasn't. It was a convertible note, a loan to be repaid, or under specific conditions to be converted into equity." Damien was shaking his head. No, Elara said. "Elara knew," Arthur said, his voice hardening. "She knew you were ambitious. The note stipulated that if the company was ever sold to a conglomerate known for hostile takeovers, or if the ethical mission she founded it on was abandoned, the note would automatically convert 51%, controlling interest." The entire room was staring. The Apex Global executives looked furious. "You fired me, Damien," Arthur said. "You called me dead weight in front of your new partners. You tried to sell my daughter's legacy to the very people she despised. You defaulted on our agreement." Damien stared at the paper. 51%. That means I am the majority shareholder of Innovate Dynamics, Arthur stated. "And as the majority shareholder, I am exercising my right. The sale to Apex Global is canceled." The room erupted in gasps. The Apex executives stood up shouting. Cynthia and her team calmly blocked their path. "Furthermore," Arthur continued, "I am calling an immediate emergency vote of the board. My first act as chairman will be to commission a full, independent audit of the last 5 years of spending. My second is to relieve you of your duties." Damien swayed. You can't." "I just did," Arthur said. He turned from the stage and looked at the stunned employees. "My name is Arthur Vance. My daughter, Elara, founded this company on the belief that good design could make people's lives better. It seems we've lost our way. That stops today. Anyone who believes in that original mission, you have a job. Anyone who believes in just progress, you are welcome to follow Mr. Thorne out the door." He turned and walked back toward the exit, the silent crowd parting for him. He paused at the door and looked back at Damien, who had collapsed into a chair on the stage, a broken man. "You called me redundant, Damien," Arthur said, his voice echoing slightly. "You were wrong. I wasn't redundant. I was the foundation." Arthur stepped out of the auditorium. He took the main elevator, not the service one, up to the executive floor. He walked past the main conference room, past Damien's office, and stopped at a smaller office in the corner. It had been Elara's. Damien had kept it preserved like a museum. Arthur opened the door. He walked in, the dust motes dancing in the light. He ran his hand over her old drawing desk. On the wall was a framed photo of a younger Arthur, a laughing Elara, and a very young Chloe on his shoulders. He looked out the window, down at the plaza below. A few minutes later, he saw Damien exit the building, carrying a small cardboard box with his personal effects. He didn't look up. Arthur didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired, but he also felt a deep, quiet sense of justice. He pulled out his phone. "Chloe, honey." "It's Grandpa?" "Yes, I'm fine. I was just calling to see if you were free for dinner. I have some things to tell you about your mother's company." "Yes, about our company."